Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. Now, a lot of you already have repeatedly asked me to talk about this month's side event and the solo objectives more in particular. Well, first of all, the first thing that we definitely need to address is still that this is second month in a row we don't have side quest. We do have a side event, but it's all objective based, which is not necessarily a bad thing if the objectives are fun, rewarding, and, reasonable, I would say. However, I have to say, the objectives have been pretty much anything but. Now, granted, I haven't had as much time for the game over the last, several weeks as I typically do. However, I have pretty much never struggled with side event stuff in general. It doesn't take that long most of the time, and I kind of tend to keep on top of it the best that I can. At the same point, these have been quite excruciating, and I cannot say that aside from maybe first week where we could use like a specific type of champion and we didn't have to do that many fights, then the second set was definitely a lot worse, to a point where I'm not even sure that I will do anything with this lower difficulty. Because why? That is the biggest problem here. Not only are the objectives tedious, they definitely do feel like a random busy work. Go and do that. There's also nowhere near good enough incentive to do them. Like 400 3-star shards and 100 4-star shards. I understand that this is the lowest difficulty level and I'm not required to complete it, but I always did all the lower side events because they seemed kind of like easy autoplay type of things that, you could either dump your energy or just have your game a bit on autoplay, and you can still get these tier 1, tier 2 catalysts and stuff like that, and all of that stuff is still useful. You're still getting 3-star champions. I like to rank them up, and I always found it enjoyable whenever we had the months where we could pick up the lower difficulty stuff. This is like pretty much the first time that I can remember where I'm really, really struggling to even motivate myself to try and do this, because this isn't something that you can just go by autoplay somewhere infinitely farm up, because you need to finish the fights with special attacks. It's not just beat the opponent. And that condition in itself always not necessarily all that easy, because opponents' health pools are limited. You need to time it perfectly. Like I was doing the Summoner Appreciation Arena to finish up my 4-star objectives, and about 50 to 60% of the fights I managed to finish the fight with special attack, and other than that the fight was wasted. So I wasn't already a fan of these objectives. Defeat 3-star champions in quests or arenas, defeat 4-star champions, 5-star. I thought it's a lot of effort, thought it's a lot of inconvenience for a very, very little reward. And the reward thing is actually a very big problem here as well, because I do understand it in my head that this side event is connected to the October side event, and October side event rewards are meant to be significantly better. But at the same time, when they make September side event rewards so much worse than they typically are, that doesn't even seem like anything special. If you typically get, I don't know, £10 a day, and somebody tells you, I'll pay you £5 today, but £15 tomorrow, it's not a good thing. In all seriousness, it's a bad thing, because you get the resources later and you need to make sure that you work both days, in order to get your regular amount. So even conceptually, the idea of taking away from 1 month to give something extra in next month, I don't agree with it. I don't like that. Not to mention that we do not even know exactly what's going to happen in October, how it's going to look like, or whether it's going to be all that great and amazing, which is just yet another, I think, a bit of a fail from Kabam in, hyping up the people. And all of that already constituted for an absolute garbage monthly event, as far as I'm concerned. This event, everything that's happening this month in terms of side event, is a failure. Because it's not fun or engaging. No, we're not getting any quests, it's just the objectives. So the objectives are long and tedious, and they're unrewarding. So to me, those are the criteria that people measure side events. And by every single reasonable measure of criteria, this month's side event is a huge failure. I'm not against putting 2 months together in like a long side event. I think it's cool. I think it's something new. They can do that. But I'm definitely against the way it's executed. I don't like the fact that 1 month we're getting as crap of a rewards as are we going to be getting this month. I don't like how tedious it is. I don't like the lack of kind of visibility throughout it, because we don't know exactly what we're working towards. Like Summer of Pain was a relatively similar concept where we worked week by week by week by week to get to something bigger, but there we always had that carrot in front of us. We knew which rewards we are striving for with those special objectives and everything else. We knew why we are putting the effort in, because we knew what we're going to get at the end of it. Right now we don't. So all of that, as far as I can tell, is already a very huge fail. And now we're going to need to address the objectives for this week. That I can see only the top 2 at the moment, because I have not finished the previous week's objectives, which again is something very atypical to me. And we can see these objectives right here, where you have to complete defeat champions in Act 6, Chapter 2 or later story quest. I understand what Kabam was going for here, kind of, because, well, they posted it in forum. We're going to jump to the forum in a second. But at the same time, this is a side event where I have to go and revisit Act 6, arguably the biggest flop in entire story content. Not a single chapter, no Act 4 when it came out, no Act 5 when it came out, definitely not Act 7 has been criticized remotely as much as Act 6 has been. A lot of people just hate it. Now, I personally am kind of okay with it, but again, I don't really have much reason to go back there since I have explored it all. And I understand that there are lots of people who have not. And now let's jump to the forum. Let's enable the display capture. Let's read up the Kabam post. There is a huge discussion on the forum. It already has like 12 or 13 pages of replies, a couple of replies from Kabam, but you know, basically everybody hates these side events. And Kabam gives, like, as far as I'm concerned, much better answer than an unnamed community manager did in some earlier post, but still. Hi folks, we are very sorry to hear your continued discontent. On behalf of the game team, we would like to take this opportunity to explain that the team built these objectives to encourage players to push for higher progression levels. In turn, we do apologize that those of you who have reached the highest progression level in our game, and we love you so much, may not find these objectives quite challenging or entertaining. Please allow us to reiterate that in order to access October's event, you will only need to complete the sets of objectives at 1 level difficulty, but you need to do all of them. So in case you felt like completing a lower set of objectives this time around, feel free to do so. It will not affect your ability to access October event, but keep in mind that you need to complete all sets of objectives every single week, at least on 1 difficulty. We completely understand that this is not the ideal solution for you, we really do, but we really also hope that you can find some amenity to resolve these objectives for now until they reveal the October event. Please refer to September side quest, forum post, blah blah blah. So that is a reasonable response, and that actually explains like what they have done here and why they have done it, especially with these objectives where they just want people to go in Act 6, and you know, if you haven't done Act 6, this might be an extra motivation. Here's the problem with a layout such as this. There's a very good reason why people who have not done all of Act 6 or haven't run through it completely haven't done it. Maybe they hate it, or maybe they're waiting for a specific pull. for instance, maybe somebody has explored 6.21 and doesn't have a good answer for the Mr. Sinister. Yes, you can push through it, but it will be very expensive. So a lot of people are waiting on that. Or maybe some people are uncomfortable with attempting to do the champion whilst there are all of the game issues happening currently. Because we cannot ignore the fact that the game is still broken. And they just don't want to go and complete Act 6, 6.2, and do the champion fight while the game is broken. And this isn't encouragement. This is like a command. This is the demand. You can either do content that, you already have explored, or you are forced to push further. It's the worst time ever to push a group of players to push forward in the game whilst it's broken, to begin with. Second of all, again, this isn't an encouragement. This is a requirement at this point. If this weekly objective would not be connected with the next week's objective and the next month's side event, that'd be one thing. But right now, for instance, you have to go in Act 6.2 in order to see the next set of objectives that's going to come next week to be able to finish all of them and access October side event. So this is definitely not what you could write up as an encouraging people to go in. This is requiring people to go in. And on top of it, again, the extremely underwhelming rewards are not helping here. So I can definitely understand people's discontent for this month event so far. I absolutely hate it. I think this is one of the worst side event piece things that Kebab has released, and I am having struggle to figuring out why exactly I should be bothered doing this. The rewards are shit. It's extremely tedious. It's a requirement for next month, unfortunately. So, at least one difficulty has to be done all the way through. But on top of that, we are currently playing in a broken game where people are forced to push higher than they ever have, which is the worst time to try and do so. Or people who have already done it all are forced to revisit old piece of content for no meaningful extra rewards. And the second thing here specifically for Act 6 stuff would be that it also takes a lot of energy to get those fights done. It really does take a lot of energy. Much more than any other standard weekly quest would do. So if you take a look in the game right now, even though they say they have reduced the number of fights that they initially had, it's still 10, 15, 20, 30, 35, 40, 50 fights in Act 6. 50 fights in Act 6 is what is required to complete this week's objective. And if you take a look at energy requirements, and a standard quest in Act 6 is 6 fights and a boss. And it takes about an energy refill to complete a path in Act 6. So 7 fights if you complete it all fully. 7 fights per energy refill. And you need to do 50 of them. That means what? 7 times 7 is 49. So let's say 7 energy refills for a week's worth of side event stuff. That's an extraordinarily huge amount of energy cost, which is absolutely unjustified by the rewards. In history of any side event, we have not had a side event that requires anybody used this much energy on it in a week. And that's just the one difficulty. That's assuming you don't want to be bothered doing the lower difficulties. So, all in all, and I don't want to, get too ranty here, I do personally believe that this entire side event is an absolute failure. Not as a concept, not as the idea of putting 2 months together. I don't mind that. I think it could be cool. It could, but this definitely is not. And I don't want to dig too much into, designers and developers and stuff like that. And I do know that they already have made the amendments. We can see a post here from Kebab Mike in the second page, which, significantly less, whatever. This is our first month doing this double month side quest thing, and we're still learning. I definitely see why this is frustrating though, and even though we try to lighten the burden by reducing the number of fights from last week, it might not have been enough. Basic math should have told them that even this is not enough. Again, an average person will need to use 7 energy refills, or basically kind of like, 7 days to take it. So you have to be on top of it every single day to do a path in Act 6 to get that. Obviously, I don't know why they thought it would. And I think that is a generic, general problem within Kabam when they're designing events. And it's critical oversight. Kabam can be very good at paying attention to detail. Like Summer of Pain Symbiote Supreme fight demonstrated. They knew the damage would be too high, that Symbiote Supreme was the only champion who had, relatively low attack because they are paying attention to detail. But they often have like extremely critical oversights and miss brutal, kind of like very self-evident, common sense things in that company when they are designing piece of content. And this is another one of them. Unfortunately, as far as it goes on a personal level, I think this is the worst monthly event I can recall myself. I hate random reward events. I hate rifts. I hate, well, hate is a strong word, but dislike or disapprove of random events, rifts, and things like that. I like stars, I like choice, but I'd literally take any other side event, any that we have had before, with quests, without quests, whatever, over this garbage. It really is awful. It's the most tedious, least rewarding event in recent memory. And it just feels like, it's some meaningless busy work for meaningless set of rewards. I do understand that Kabam is going to push this month through according to their plan, regardless of what I or, everybody else says in this thread. And again, there are like already 12 pages of people basically bashing this event in. This side event is not going to change. I do hope, however, that we never see anything remotely as shit as this in a game again. And I'm not talking about putting 2 events together at all. But this just feels lazy, not thought out, because there's no actual side event quest second month in a row. Which, we could be fine if the objectives are okay. The objectives, all of them, aside from week 1, I guess, have been quite shit. And the rewards are definitely shit. You can't get people hyped for the next month by taking away most of the rewards from this month. It's not how it works. At that point, people already feel like you kind of owe them the rewards that they didn't get the month before. If you want to get people hyped, let this month have the regular rewards and increase the rewards for the second month or something like that. This is not how you do it. So yeah, unfortunately for me personally, I do think this is the worst side event that I can remember. Let me know what you guys think. So yeah. Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information